Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whisky. My name's VinPF, and on today's episode I'm coming at you as a very, very, very proud man indeed. Now, what you might have seen here today on the shelf, and if you follow my social media you will already know about these little beauties, but I have my very, very own whiskies with the No Nonsense Whisky label on them, ready for purchase now. Now, if that's all you need to know, and you haven't heard about these yet, then pause the video, check out the description below, and there'll be a link to the purchase site for this. These aren't on my website, they're on my partner site, Ooshkie. We'll talk about all that in just a moment, but I wanted to get that out there right now, so if you're just interested in purchasing without any more information, then the link in the description below. But yeah, so I have my own whiskies. We've got two on display here today. We've got the Release 1 and the Release 2. I want to go through a little bit about how I've selected these whiskies and the partnership I've got in place before we get into the actual whiskies themselves, because I think it's important that you understand how these were picked, because the distilleries, as you'll see as we get through these, are not a kind of typical choice that I might have made if you follow my whiskey channel and my whiskey journey. Now, the way we pick these, I'm in partnership with a new website called Ooshkie. They are a shop, a marketplace, and a members site. They're going to be doing some subscriptions soon. So make sure you go and check them out once you're kind of looking around if you're looking at purchasing these things. And even if you're not interested in purchasing these whiskies, make sure you do go and check out the website, because they're doing great stuff over there. So these whiskies were actually selected by me blind. I was sent a sample pack and tried through those sample packs, and I picked my favourite of those. Completely blind, no information, didn't even know how much these were going to be kind of priced at the time. I just went purely on my own instincts and my own preferences. That's what you're getting here. You're getting whiskies that I really like, not whiskies that I'm kind of trying to impress people with or anything like that. This is stuff that I've just picked. So, as you might already know, but if you don't, the release number 1 is a Dalmore, and the release number 2 is an Aberfeldy. Now, both of these are single cask, cask strength, natural coloured, non-chill filtered. All things that are awesome to me. The idea behind these whole whiskey releases was to do a kind of really double down on that no-nonsense vibe. So as you can see right here, we've just gone for standard bottlings. There's nothing fancy about the bottles. We've really stripped back the labels to just the information that's absolutely necessary. There is a blurb on the back of these things. I'll show you one of the labels now. This is the Dalmore label. So as you can see, we've got the release number 1, the distillery, the age, and then some information about the cask and the ABV, of course. And on the back, each release will have a kind of personalised note from myself and a little signature as well, which I think is pretty cool. All of these bottles will be numbered as well. These are 1 to 100. There's 100 each available for these. I have bottle number 1 of each of these, of course. Why not? My prerogative. I don't think I'll do that for the future releases, but for the first 2, I think it's a little bit special, so I've kept these. Now, the eagle-eyed among you will notice that these are actually sealed, of course. I have more bottles in the back here that I took my samples today from and have done my tastings from so far. So yeah, where we're at right now then, we may as well get straight into the actual whiskies themselves and see what we've got. It's going to be a bit of a different video today because I don't feel overly comfortable doing a proper review for you guys, because obviously I like these whiskies and obviously I want you guys to be interested in them. But this is just me doing a semi-review on my own whiskies in the hope that you guys might be interested in them. One other thing to note as well is that recently I've been doing a lot of things that are UK only, and I did promise you guys something that's a bit more worldwide. This is it. These are available worldwide as long as your receiving country or state, as the case may be, allows the transition and the transit of alcohol. So a great example, Texas. If you live in Texas, unfortunately, you probably won't be able to get this, but you know, you do what you've got to do. You guys know how to sort out that sort of. But yeah, these are available for worldwide dispatch, so just keep that in mind. Okay, let's get into the first one then and see what we've got in release number 1. I'm going to dig these labels out so you can see again. Hold this one up again. There you go, just if you want to get that more information off of there. This is release number 1, and it is a Dalmore. The reason why this is cool, and the thing is about this, I didn't know this was Dalmore when I was tasting it. I just picked it and it tasted lovely. The best thing about having a Dalmore like this is that this is not Dalmore as you normally know it. So obviously Dalmore is quite known for its heavily sherried whiskies, generally speaking at the low 40s, if not just 40%. This is a cask strength, so this one's 60.4%. It's a bit of a monster, and of course a single cask. Now this is, it did come from a butt, and it's 9 years in the butt. You can see the colour on this thing is fairly light. It is a refill cask, which again is surprising to me because these are all things like Dalmore, refills, that might be a bit wishy-washy, but the cool thing about this is that the cask elements of it are really quite diminished, so everything that we're getting from this whiskey is distillery character that you don't normally get to try from Dalmore. It's not impossible to get hold of an independent Dalmore, but it is fairly rare, and as I mentioned earlier, 9 years in that cask before I got my grubby mitts on it. Now, in the glass, on below a No Nonsense Whisky coin and of course a No Nonsense Whisky glass. If you don't have those sorts of things, please do go and get them because they really do help support the channel. Nice light straw-like colour. I think it looks really good. It's one of those things. There's obviously no added colour in these things, so that's something else that Dalmore is well known for. You know, it's unadulterated and straight in there. Lovely. Let's get onto the nose then and see what we've got, shall we? Now for me, this is a really kind of light, fresh and clean nose. There's some very, very light vanillas going on there. And you'll forgive me for going a little bit more in depth into tasting notes. Something I don't usually do on the channel, but for my own whiskies, I think I'm allowed the indulgence on that. I get a little bit of kind of lemongrassiness, this citrusy notes on it. And there's this kind of almost buttery cereal note on the back end that's really kind of biscuity, like that. Let's get onto the palate then and see what we've got. Now, obviously these have got really high ABVs, so make sure this isn't the first dram of your evening, I would say. You know, ease yourself into it. You know, unless you're into that sort of thing, I'm not here to tell you how to drink. My personal preference is that I will always drink something a little lighter, a little easier before I get into something like this, as I have done before recording this today. But on the palate, the initial reaction for me is this kind of creme brulee, this vanilla-y, like with a little bit of char on there as well. Really tasty, and then a bit more of that lemony coming through. I called it a tang of lemon on my own personal tasting notes, which is a little bit fluffy, but you get what I'm trying to say. Then the ABV kicks in and we're getting this kind of peppery spice come through. Let's have another little sip. Yeah, the finish is really long. Lots of pepperiness going on there. Kind of, we're talking about like a sort of cracked black pepper here. And then finishes on that kind of fruity, vanilla-y notes. Really quite sweet on the back end. It just keeps going. I can still feel it now. It's at the back of my throat. That's probably the ABV kicking in there. Now, I think it's a really good whiskey, of course. It's not cheap. It's £75 on the website, but unapologetically so. It's I think it's pretty well priced in comparison to similar whiskies that you'll find out and about. And it definitely has my stamp of approval, of course. So if it interests you to try Dalmore in this sort of situation, or if you just want to see the kind of whiskies that I would pick, then by all means, go ahead and check out the Dalmore. Now, I don't often do this on camera, but I'm going to for this. It's important to rinse between these two whiskies. It's important to note that selecting them as 1 and 2 was never intended to have them as part of a tasting together. Although I think they complement each other quite well, especially in this order, going from 1 to 2. But you know, you do you, whichever way you like. But yeah, they weren't designed to taste together. So if you do end up buying both and trying them both in quick succession, I implore you to cleanse your palate so you get the most out of your whiskies. There you go. Okay, so I'll bring this one forward. This is under my Ooshkie coin. So if you're a member, you get stuff like a t-shirt and a coin and a few other added bonuses, which I won't go into now. If you want to go and check that out, make sure you go and check out the website so you can see what they're doing. Now, here we have an Aberfeldy 6-year-old. Now, this is cool because it's in a rechar hogshead. And it's, again, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, you'll know I'm a big fan of that kind of rechar. I do like the kind of STR, the kind of that shaved, toasted rechar thing. I believe this is just simply rechar. They haven't like taken it apart and done anything fancy to the inside. Just give it a bit of flame to rejuvenate the cask. But as you can see, the difference now in the colour between the previous This is obviously 6 years. It's got a much deeper golden colour to it, which is pretty cool. We like that sort of thing. And again, Aberfeldy is not a distillery that you typically see independent bottled. It has been done, and it is available fairly frequently. But in terms of distilleries that you see in independent bottles, it's one of those distilleries that you don't see very often. I think it's pretty fair to say. It's pretty fair to say. Again, the colour on this, really nice, kind of coppery, like that sort of thing. Let's get onto the nose and see what we've got. Now, in contrast to the last one, which was kind of fresh and clean, this one is much more lively and fruity. Again, getting a bit fluffy with my tasting notes on these, my personal prerogative. I got stuff like cooked pears and a bit of sponge cake. It's almost a bit jammy. Really, really nice and fruity. There's some sort of tannic elements on the back end. You know, the oak influence coming through a little bit more on this. Let's try on the palate then. It's got a really nice viscous mouthfeel to it. Really juicy. Just right there, I've got a bit of extra like mouth wateriness to it. It's exactly what this does to you. I'm gonna have to have another sip. Initially, it's kind of sweet. Lots more of those kind of like sponge cake and kind of jam-like elements coming through. Again, then the ABV kicks in. This one's high as well. This one's 59.8%. Again, cask strength. No nonsense. We like that sort of stuff. And then once that ABV is kind of kicking in at the back end, more of those tannic elements are coming through, a little bit leathery, and then finally kind of big dose of peppery. This is, I always say peppery is a tasting note, but whereas the first one was kind of like black cracked pepper, this is more like powdered white pepper. You know, if you try them side by side, you'll know what I mean. There's not so much difference between the two, but that's my differences I've got there. We'll have one final sip. Now again, the finish is absolutely massive. Just keeps going on and on and on. Pepperiness coming through. It isn't kind of sour at all. It's a little bit more fruity. I wouldn't call it sweet. It's not sickly sweet. It's just nice and fruity on the back end. And then finally, out of nowhere, once that's all disappeared, the wood elements come through a bit more. It kind of sours up a little bit towards the back end, which is not something that I dislike. I really like that sort of thing. Let's stick that back under there. Okay, now in terms of price on this one's a little bit cheaper. It's £45, which again I think is perfectly placed. It's a very affordable whiskey, and the bang for buck you're getting on this thing is amazing. Whereas the Dalmore is kind of like an awesome look at a distillery that you never get to see this kind of side of them, you know, like actually like unadulterated Dalmore. This is also the unadulterated Aberfeldy, but it's got that added influence of the rechar cask that's really bringing an extra dynamic to it. And I have to say, I think you're getting a little bit of a bargain for the £45. It's such a good whiskey, a dangerously good whiskey, that it's just going to disappear from my shelf pretty quickly. Now, I'm lucky because I've got a couple of bottles of this. Obviously, it's my whiskey. So the ones I've got open are going to disappear pretty quickly. These ones are probably going to sit up behind me on the shelf here on show for a while until at least these are gone. I will open these, and I would love it if all of you opened them as well. I'm going to be doing a few tastings with different people. I've got New Dram Drinkers, the COs, tasting coming up. So if you're interested in that, make sure you go and check out New Dram Drinker. And I'm going to probably do a live stream of my own at some point where we can talk about this in more depth. If you bought some bottles, you can join in on that one. But yeah, I would absolutely love it if you're interested in these and you want to go and pick up a bottle. Again, go and check out the links in the description below. Go and check out Ooshkie and see what they're working on over there. Really exciting stuff. And do let me know if you picked up a bottle of these, and I would love to hear your feedback on these bottles. Again, I'm impressed. I picked these because I like them. I hope that you will too, but of course, it's possible that you might not. So, good or bad, please let me know what you think about these whiskies in the comments below. Or if you don't feel like putting them in a public forum, email me, nnwhiskey@gmail.com. Always happy to hear your thoughts on these things, because it will guide me as I do more of these releases, because I'm hoping, if this is a success, that we'll do more of these, and I basically entered the world of independent bottling, which is extremely exciting. I'd just like to end the video to say thank you very much for everyone's support, whether you buy my stuff or if you just watch the videos. if you hit like, if you follow me on social media, all of those things are massively appreciated. You're the people that made this happen. If it weren't for people clicking subscribe, this sort of thing would never have occurred for me, and I am so grateful to all of you for watching my stuff and for generally supporting my endeavours. Thank you.